All right, everyone. Just got a couple requests for homework one, question 18, that looks at the shifts in supply and demand. And I thought probably the best way to answer this is to go over this on a video, and hopefully everybody can clear up any issues they might have about this. So, all right, so when I look at this question, it says you're looking at the market for housing or for new homes rather, and you're supposed to match each scenario to the appropriate diagram. Now, again, the one thing similar to one of the questions earlier is that if you start trying to look at these graphs and trying to match graphs with some sort of explanation, it's really easy to get confused and really easy to get backwards. So here's how I think you should approach this question. So if you look at premise one, it says that developers get a rebate for building new homes. Okay, so if you're a developer and you have this option to build a new home, and all of a sudden you're going to get a rebate, which means the government's going to give you some cash if you build a new home, how is that going to change your behavior? Okay, so what you should do is you should start off in an equilibrium, as always, with a downward sloping demand curve, upward sloping supply curve. Okay, so we've got supply 1, we've got demand 1, we've got quantity 1, and we've got price 1. So this is our equilibrium right here. So now that we're here, we just need to ask ourselves, if developers get a rebate for building new homes, first, who is this going to affect? Well, we're talking about developers here, so this is going to have some impact on supply. Because developers are going to be more likely to build homes now, they're going to want to build more. That's going to increase that quantity supplied at all price levels. It doesn't matter whether it's price 1 or price 100, right? This means that supply is going to increase. When we think of supply increasing, this is going to be a shift right. Okay? So now we've got this shift right in supply. Let's draw that. I'm going to draw this in red here. So now we've got a shift right in supply. We go from S1 to S2, and we go to a new equilibrium from E1 to E2. Okay, so we've got quantity 2, and we've got price 2. Okay, so we've got supply going up. All we need to do right now is then just look at the graphs on our key here on the question and just say, well, developers get a rebate. What does this mean? This means supply is going to shift to the right. That's associated with panel A. Okay? All right, so then let's move on to question or part B, or scenario B, and see if we can figure that out. Okay? Cost of materials needed to build new homes, that's going to go up. All right, so the cost, I'm going to do a pen here, cost of materials increases. Okay, so again, you've got to put yourself in the really in this housing market and say, who exactly is this going to affect? If you're a home buyer and you want a new home, you might want a home that's nice and has nice amenities, but you're not sitting there looking at the cost of each thing that's used to produce the house. So that's really on the supplier side, right? This is a supplier issue, so we really need to think about what's going to happen to suppliers or builders of new homes, right? If you're a supplier, developer, and the cost of materials goes up, well, you can start to think, I'm going to need to charge more, or I'm not going to produce as much. So let's show that on this graph above, where we have, again, quantity and price. Okay, we've got our generic supply curve, we've got our demand curve, we've got demand 1, we've got supply 1, we've got equilibrium with quantity 1, price 1, and E1. Okay, so if the cost of materials goes up, what's that going to do? That's going to decrease supply. That's going to cause a shift left. Okay, so let's do that. Let's do that in red again. Supply is going to shift to the left. We go from S1 to S2. We have this movement over. We go from E1 to E2. Quantity goes from Q1 to Q2. And price goes up from P1 to P2. Okay, so now we've got this shift left in supply. we can say which graph is this associated with on the question. That looks like part B, okay, or panel B. All right, so notice here, when I approach these questions, I'm not sitting here saying, okay, we've got this scenario, let me try to match that up. I'm saying I've got a scenario, let me write this out and draw this out. That's going to be the best, most efficient way to answer these questions, okay? All right, let's do the last two real quick. All right, the last two scenarios, because it's going to be the other side of the market, because it's looking at consumers. So notice in premise number 3, there's a large increase in the consumers, right? So there's a large increase in consumers, right? This is almost, it's really leading you to a particular shift in this market. So when you're talking about consumers and there's more consumers, we can just think of this as being on the demand side of the market. If there's more consumers, demand's going to increase. Okay, so without even drawing anything out, we can say demand should go up here. Now let's draw this out and see what this looks like. So I've got, again, a downward sloping demand curve, upward sloping supply curve. We've got demand 1, supply 1. We've got Q1, we've got price 1, and we've got E1. Okay, we've got a demand increase. This thing is going to shift to the right. Okay, let's show this happen, and let's show this happen in blue here. We've got demand going to the right. Let's mark that down here as demand 2, D1 to D2. There's more consumers. That means at every price level, there's going to be more homes that are wanting to be bought. Okay, our new equilibrium here at E2, that's a higher equilibrium quantity, higher equilibrium price, right? Now we can go ahead and map this out and say, what graph is this associated with? All right, and we're going to see that that's going to be a shift to the right in the demand curve. Okay, last one. Hopefully you're sitting there saying like, okay, I think I've got this. Give it a try on your own, pause the video, whatever you need to do. All right, but the last one says there's an increase in the interest rate for borrowers. Okay, so we're really thinking about consumers here. They're going to have to pay a higher interest rate on their mortgage. Again, this is going to affect the demand side of the market. And if the interest rate is higher, that means for each dollar you borrow, it's going to cost more, and whether it's in monthly payment or overall interest payments through the lifetime of the loan. That means you're not going to be able to afford as expensive as a home. That's going to lead to a decrease in demand, a shift to the left. Okay, let's see this one more time, and let's see this demand shift to the left. All right, we've got our initial demand curve, initial supply curve, D1, S1. We've got equilibrium 1, quantity 1, price 1, and we're all set. Okay, demand decreases. Going to show that as a shift to the left in the demand curve. Now we're over here, and we've got demand 2, equilibrium 2, quantity 2, price 2. Okay, all right, so we can match that up now with our panels on the questions. So, all right, so hopefully going through all these gives you guys a sense of just how to approach questions like these. I'm confident that most of you guys feel good or know what happens when these scenarios are presented to you. It's just a matter of really mapping that to the supply and demand curve. So keep working at it, and hopefully this video gives you guys a little bit more insight on how to tackle these questions. All right, we'll see you next time.